It's going all right, man. How are you?
I am on cloud nine.
Yeah. What? Why? Why? Any reason in particular?
Yeah, Kelly Olynyk,
Um, okay. Is beer on yet?
dude. Can we talk about Kelly Olynyk's line tonight?
I'm not. I haven't studied the lines tonight. Let me let me
Well,
catch let me catch up to you. I'm going to Dirty Dog Nation
oh my
as we
goodness,
speak.
you might need
Don't
a
spoil it.
drink.
Don't. I'm gonna go. I have a drink. I'm gonna go one by one. Say Jordan Clarkson with 12 seconds left in the fourth quarter. 4 points, 3 assists, and a rebound.
Don't
Solid. Solid.
don't be
Will
negative.
Barton. Wait. I'm just going one by one, dude. I'm going in order. Will Barton. 4 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks. I like it. No turnovers. And still 5 minutes left in the third. Justin Holiday, cooling down a little bit after a
Yeah.
scorcher a few nights ago. Bam, your boy Bam, 6 and 5 with no with no peripheral stats. Not too bad. Not too bad. Taj, putting in some work, stealing
Dude,
the
Taj,
block.
Taj is like a fountain of youth out there.
Oh, there it is, Kelly Olynyk.
Dude.
Kelly Olynyk. That's like what Dragon Bender does on a bad night.
Oh my goodness. The Kelly Olynyk line. I think he may have edged out Harden tonight. Harden had like 49, 5, and 9 or something, but that Olynyk line really ties the room together.
Ooh, dude, Torrey Craig doing business on the bench.
Why don't we don't need to pay attention to some of the crumbs that I obviously have to start.
um, why isn't there like a permanent ing next to Anthony Davis's name, dude? How we need to talk about Anthony Davis.
What's wrong with Anthony Davis, dude? He's awesome. He
Every
he he
single
he gets
dude,
little
I
bumps here and there.
every single night he leaves in like the third quarter and like 50% of the time doesn't return and 50% of the time comes back.
That's
Like every
that's
single night.
I mean, the thing is, even when he like checks out of the game for like 12 minutes to get an X-ray or something, he comes back and scores like 36, right? I mean,
It's
it's fine.
it's tr- it's true. It's true. It's just like it must be nerve-wracking to own him.
No, there's nothing. I mean, he's just dominant.
Have we heard from Joshua? Oh, there's Josh.
Hello.
Beer? Hey, man.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey. Hold on. Let me do this on a computer. I think it'll be better that way.
This is exciting.
So
We got
exciting.
beer. We've never done this with beer.
Never? No way.
I don't think so.
Yes,
Am I
we
wrong?
have.
Oh yeah, we
Yes.
did the one where we did the one where you announced your pregnancy.
Right.
Yes, that's right. Exactly.
I forgot about that.
Do you have another announcement?
No. No. No.
All right, well then this pot is over.
Well, I have an announcement that Lusky declared me the winner. So
Oh yeah,
That's right.
we're gonna get to that.
We're breaking news on the UAF on the Collar Pod.
call the season off. Sorry, Smarting has won.
Beer. Whatever you just did made it like 100 times worse.
What's that?
Like some change just happened, and now we're catching like every other word that you say.
Really?
Well,
Not here,
now
fun.
you seem fine, but there was a minute there where it was touch and go.
Oh, did we just lose him? We just lost him.
Yeah, that
Lost
move to the
yesterday?
computer business may not have been the move. I,
I
I
got some lines.
So, despite the Kelly Olynyk celebration that's happening, I do have some sad news, which is that I'm out of bullet, and so I'm drinking Angel's Envy over here.
I'm drinking gin. I'm drinking a gin cocktail that I just like made. I'm sort of winging it. There's a lot of
Dude,
like Campari and fruity things in it.
yeah, like who
I
drinks
don't love
gin at
gin.
home?
I don't know, man.
Nobody
I'm
drinks
drinking.
gin at home.
I'm drinking gin. I'm drinking gin. It's gonna be a good pod.
I mean, I drink gin like when I'm out and like they put like elderflower or some bullshit in it, but like at
Yeah, yeah.
home, I don't drink
That's basically what I made. I made a fruity gin drink for myself for this pod.
gin.
I think it's gonna
Okay.
be good. Pascal Siakam not hurting you too much with his line tonight.
I dropped him, right? He's on the
I know.
wire.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm saying he's not. He hasn't like hurt. You know, like it's not a good line. It's not going to make you regret dropping him.
I did really think about that for a while though, because Pesk many moons ago expressed interest in him, and I was like, "Ooh, the piranhas are swirling."
Whoa, dude! A guy played 5 minutes tonight for the Hornets who I've never heard of before.
All right, there we go.
There's one starter these days. Who's the guy starting for the Magic that I've never heard of?
Oh yeah, the guy starting tonight. For the Magic?
It's like a Hawaiian name or something. I don't know anything about
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah, I don't know that guy, but here's this guy, Mangok Mathayang. Have you guys heard of him?
sounds
I have
awesome.
not heard-
What beer?
No, I have not heard of him. Is this better or worse?
Worse. Now you sound
Worse,
like you're in a
way
cave.
Now I sound like I'm in a cave?
In a
Yeah,
cave.
it's okay. Whatever you were doing before is better than this.
Wait, Horn.
This is,
Horn, you were going after like Bam's line. Should we talk about Julius Randle? I mean, should we go there?
no, Julius Randle's irrelevant.
Okay, or Luke Kennard, dude, I dropped him and now he's off the wire into the fire for the walks. Luke Kennard, amazing.
Let's hear Luke Kennard's. I haven't looked at my own guys yet.
Luke Kennard has 5 points. No, I will say there's 5 minutes to go in the game, but he has 5 points with 1 3.
Solid.
Yep. He has 0 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 steal and 0 turnovers.
Dude, I can live with that.
You can?
Yeah, sure.
Is this better now?
Yes.
Better. Moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it seems better.
All right.
Should we talk about the Frank Mason? Actually, Frank Mason put up 2 steals and 1 block. I mean, you can literally go like 0 of 10 from the field, and if you have 2 steals and a block, I'm kind of like, okay.
Yeah. Dude, Wesley Owundo is the guy from the Magic.
Yeah, where did he go to school?
Kansas State. Mangok Mathayang went to Louisville. Beer, I'm surprised you haven't heard of him.
Why is that?
I don't know, like some random Sudanese dude from Louisville. Just seems like somebody who'd be right up your alley.
That does seem like someone. We played against them last year too. That's why.
Right. That's why it seems like somebody you should know.
Definitely. I mean, I'm all about like random foreign players. I guess I don't know. Bogdan is going to be amazing.
Beer. I'm really confused by what I saw at Michigan, Texas the other night, just because I'm not sure if Michigan's that good or if Texas is just that bad.
Wasn't Texas missing some guys? Weren't they a little banged up?
Yeah, I think they're a little banged up, but I think they're also generally not that good. Mo Bamba is, I mean, he's just like offensively just impotent. You know, like the guy just has no clue what to do on offense.
Yeah, the like total raw talent, and went to a school that has a nice history of not really developing raw talent.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Durant excluded.
Yeah.
What do you think Michigan would look like if we had Mo Bamba on the team this year?
I
actually,
you don't think we'd be better?
I don't think so.
I think we would. I don't know.
It's hard to imagine that Beeline wouldn't like have a better sense of what to do with him.
He can shoot threes. He's like a legit shot blocking rim protector who can.
Yeah,
shoot
no,
threes.
he was great under the rim. He got like 2 sneaky blocks under the rim. He was good on defense, but the offensive thing was weird.
Altering shots like crazy. Like some of the we were dropping. Part of the reason we won is because Xavier was like, and Matthews, I think, both threw like crazy shots that had no business going in because he was forcing them to get these weird release points. You know, I don't know. I think he's amazing.
Wagner showed some really good moves in that game, I will say.
Yeah, and apparently he's a second round guy. So
should we start the pod?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Hello and welcome to season 3, episode 5 of the Collier Pod. I am your host, David Horn, owner of the I haven't looked in a while, 12th place Jabberwocks. With me are Brian Lusky, owner of the Lusk, you want to chime in? I don't even have it.
I think I'm like 10th, but I am within striking distance, guys. I'm gunning for like 7th or something.
You are definitely 10th. I'm waiting for
the first thing you need to wait for is your introduction, Josh. That's how it works. That's how it works on the Collier Pod. Also with us and getting a little ahead of his skis is a very special guest, owner of the first place. Sorry for partying, Josh Beer, who spoiled the surprise. Welcome, Joshua, back to the Collier Pod.
Great to be back.
It's great to have you,
and especially great to be announced as the first place this time.
Well, I think the last time you were on the pod, I don't think you were in first place. I could be wrong.
I don't think I was either.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot to talk about tonight. I think that we're gonna do. We've done pods recently with managers. And done sort of deep dives into their teams. I'd like to do a little bit of that with Sorry for Partying tonight. But I think rather than focusing, and I think on some of the other ones, we've spent a lot of time on the year, on sort of the past years and the progression of different teams to to the present. I think in this case, I'd like to focus more on this year and the more recent past for Sorry for Partying. And one of the reasons why is because I was looking at, one of the things I like to do in preparing for these is sort of look to see how you got here. And the way that you got here, you don't need to turn the pages back too far into the past to tell the story of this year's Sorry for Partying. So I thought we would just maybe begin by talking, sort of starting in the present and working our way backwards. Let's just start where we are now. It's December 20th. You're in first place by 9 points over Kansas City Redhawks. 10 points over Leonine Faces, 16 points over the early leader Chupacabras, and Scotty B for 3 is right there too. How are you feeling about where things stand on December 20th? On a scale of 1 to 100, where's your confidence?
30%, maybe 20%. I don't know. I mean, I still feel.
Did you say 20 or 28%?
20 or 30%, somewhere in there. 28%.
Okay, so 28. Maybe let's call it 28.
Yeah, sure. Maybe 25. I think I still feel like the underdog because I think both Gabe and Emmer have. Well, first of all, I think Gabe's like 40 games behind me at this point, something crazy, and 31 as of yesterday, and Leonin is 28 behind me. So that's a significant number that are being hidden in a number of counting stats. I mean, he's basically ahead of me. Killer. So, the shiny first place number is a little deceiving by the games played, but I think people are aware of that. They also both have some assets. I think maybe Emmers are a little bit better. But I'm starting to feel better about my assets as well. So we'll see. Some things that were surprises that I think could be attractive to people if I package it the right way and to the right person. And I think my guys are also probably a little easier for me to move. So I still feel confident, but I'm definitely an underdog, and I'm going to need more stuff to continue to break right. I mean, the only reason I'm where I'm at right now is because a lot of stuff is broken right.
So I want to talk about all the things that are broken right for you. Lusky, Josh alluded to this idea that his competitors might have better assets to sell. I know that you are on the other side of at least some of the discussions around those assets. Do you, or at least theoretically, you should be. Do you sense that Sorry for Partying is at a significant disadvantage because he doesn't have the same quality of whether it's a D-League guy or a multi-year, sort of a clear multi-year keeper with $100 of stored value? When you look at the landscape of buyers, do you see SFP as being at a significant disadvantage or a more sort of mild disadvantage?
It's a good question because I actually don't think that Josh is at a significant disadvantage at all. I mean, certainly if I were to rank the keepers, I wouldn't put Josh Beer's guys at the top of the pack. But I think Beer made a really good point, which is that his players that have emerged as possible keepers or who are already under contract and at a nice price, they're easier for him to move. And so I think my sense, and I have not dug, Beer and I have not really been discussing seriously at all, but my sense is that Beer would probably be more reasonable about his players. Whereas, I mean, at this point, I'm guessing that someone like Gabe or Emmer is really kind of holding out for a home run. And I'm not so sure that a home run is there to be had for them. I mean, they're saving these games played for a reason, I suspect. But I don't, it's interesting being on the other side of it. Like, a lot of times we sit around and we go, oh man, wouldn't it be nice to have Zinger or Jokic at a nice price next year? But like, at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't know if having Jokic for 1 year is really all that much more valuable to me than having someone like Otto Porter for 2 more years at a similar price.
So when you guys use this phrase that certain players are easier to move, you're not talking about Otto, are you? I assume you're talking about players who either aren't performing as. I mean, Otto is a sort of a top 25, top 30 guy. I assume you're talking about I assume what you're saying is that the reason that Emmer's players, for example, are difficult to move is because they're sort of better players, right? Jokic and Porzingis are top 10, top 15 type guys. Gabe's guys, right? Draymond and Gobert, when he's healthy, are sort of top 15 guys, and that Beer has others who are not, in that range. You're sort of doing it overall, Josh, with like players. Most of your players are not in that range at all, and so those who are keepers are not as sort of essential. Like you've got more of a kind of a larger basket of options to move. Is that sort of what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, exactly that. I mean, I do think that some of my guys are in that elite category, but they're not on as good of contracts as Jokic or Porzingis. And, Otto's just not as sexy. Like, he makes everything better, but he doesn't do that one. He doesn't get blocks that, he gets like threes and steals, and he's like the prototypical wing for Roto. He's perfect, and he doesn't hurt you anywhere. But he's not sexy, and he's not ultra cheap either. He's a good value. He's definitely a bunch of savings for you, but he doesn't like clearly set your team up in one way. Whereas Jokic, is assists from an off position and is amazing because of that, and Porzingis is threes and blocks and all of that kind of stuff. So both of those guys are like really easy to kind of going with, and Otto, I think you kind of have to talk yourself into in some ways. I think that's part of it. But I also think I have a few other guys that I drafted and have for a significant amount of value who are young, who maybe had been in the league for a few years and were, I think in UFBL we have a tendency to forget that some of these guys are 19 when they come into the league.
Are we talking around Tobias Harris or something? Like, who are we talking about?
Yeah, I think Tobias is a guy that I would consider because he's 25 years old and has now found a role where he's getting a ton of burn, and he was only $16 at auction. So that right. looks like an attractive contract. I think Kyrie is the other one. He's on the season. He's a top 14. So first round talent is kind of how I would think about it. He's not a huge savings, but he's an easy guy to build around. He doesn't hurt you. He's shooting really well from the field, and he gets hard to get categories. He gets a ton of points, and he doesn't turn the ball over a ton, and perfect free throw percentage. So I think I've got a few guys that are like that, and again, Kyrie, he's at the end of that first round, and he's not super cheap, but he's a guy that someone who has some assets might be willing to, throw a few guys back to me for, and if I'm interested in them, they're likely replacing those guys or Kyrie's value a little bit easier than Porzingis, where he's going to need to get a bunch of stuff back, or Jokic, where he's going to need to get a bunch of stuff back for him to make it worth it to give up that contract for next year.
Right, so, right. You can You can be a little bit more nimble in these deals than Emmer, perhaps. Lusky, what do you think of these guys? Like,
who is amazing.
Oh, go ahead.
Also Bogdan, who is amazing.
Who?
I genuinely believe that. So he's going to be awesome.
I'm still not even clear which Bogdanovic you have, to be clear.
Don't you have the other one? Plus?
No.
So
Okay.
I have the 24-year-old one who has a clear path to minutes and is a rookie, and the other one who is closer to having my haircut and gets lots of teasing points and nothing else, who is like 29, is Emmer's team.
How different are their statistical profiles?
Bogdan can pass and play defense, so he gets more. His assists are a little higher. His steals are higher. He gets over a steal on limited minutes already. So he has a more appealing fantasy profile as far as I'm concerned. Although I will say Bojan has been pretty awesome in Indiana. I'm just saying, but I think that this is his ceiling. He's 29 years old.
Right.
This,
and we've seen it. We've seen what he can do in multiple different situations. And there's a ceiling. Lusk, when you look at the current, sorry for partying, I mean, it's not, and I don't mean just any disrespect, Pierre. Like, it's not a sexy team by UAFPL standards, right? It does not have those sort of blue chip keepers. There's no Giannis. There's no Jokic. What do you see when you look at this team? I mean, the Vucevic, excuse me. Buy is super. A keep is super solid. The Tobias buy is super solid. Darren Collison, of course, is working out. Cantor is working out. Does this, like in 2017, does this look like a team that can contend in UFPL, or is how many of these guys are going to actually be on Beer's team in April?
Well, I don't know how many are going to be there in April.
Do you believe? I guess the question is really, do you believe in the Collison, Vukovic, and Tobias Harris? I mean, I think that's really and Dinwiddie to some extent. Like, those are the guys who I think are so overperforming their per value or their auction value, did Dinwiddie come off the wire, Beer?
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I think Beer's team's profile is going to look dramatically different by season's end, but that's the nature of our league. Like, the arms race dictates that, right? He's going to. I mean, given where he is right now, he's going to put his foot on the pedal. I don't think I'm spoiling anything here, and he's going to improve his team, and that will mean upgrading a lot of these guys. I mean, they've been great for him, and
it is the nature of UFPL. But contrast it with Emmer's team, where Chris Paul, if he's healthy, will be on his team at the end of the year. Paul George will be on his team at the end of the year. LeBron James will be on his team at the end of the year. John Wall will be on his team at the end of the year. When you compare Beer's team to his competitors, at least to me, it looks like he's got more work to do in terms of who are his 10 or 12 guys going to be at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, by name recognition and talent alone, certainly Emmer's team looks better on paper. But I think Beer has already shown us this year that he can find this balance, and I think that's more than half the battle. I mean, one of the challenges, and I think we'll get to this more in depth later on, but one of the challenges is keeping that team's identity as the arms race ramps up, because as we know, doing things like being stellar in turnovers when you're trying to onboard superstars becomes really challenging.
Let's start working backwards in time. Beer, take us back to your auction. You made several good buys, and I'm curious what your thinking was on them. Whether these guys who we're talking about, Cantor, Harris, Collison, whether these were guys that you were targeting, or whether you just were sort of chasing value, or whether they were sloppy seconds where you had your eyes on other players and then they filled in the gaps where you weren't able to find the guys you wanted. How did you sort of come to these guys, and how did that square with your pre-auction strategy?
Yeah, so I had Otto, Brogdon, Avery Bradley, and who am I missing?
Well, Vooch, didn't you buy the rights to
Oh,
Vooch at
Gary
some point?
Harris. Gary Harris
Oh, right.
coming in. I
When
targeted
did you buy?
Vooch
When did you get Vooch at that weekend?
the night before. We did the or 2 nights before. We did the pod. I got him from Amish on the pod.
It was the most confusing deal. I thought you were just doing it to like do something for a podcast, and then you kept him, and I was like, "What is happening here?" And now you look like a genius.
Wait, you didn't think that was I was just doing it for the podcast? I was thrilled about that. Now I'm kicking myself. I should have kept him for 2 years.
I didn't see it, but maybe I didn't see it.
Oh, Vooch is only a 1-year keeper?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's too bad.
I know, right? So he's going to be on my team for the rest of the year, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had those 4 guys, and then I acquired Vooch and Kyrie, and so those guys I was clearly targeting. Kyrie, I fell into. I actually wanted Dame, but
wait. Can I interrupt you for a sec? Can you just explain why you were targeting Vooch?
Because he was a big who gets good percentages, and I wasn't concerned about blocks, and he's a little bit lower on the blocks end. So I was punting blocks from the beginning. Once I looked at my hand, and I was like, well, what do I looked at my hand, and I looked at the available keepers. All the best block guys were already spoken for. Gobert to Gabe, Miles Turner to Peskin, Porzingis to on and on and on. I went down the line. I was like, every single guy who gets a bunch of blocks is going to be just fierce over these guys. I have none of this in my hand already. I should just say fuck it and run with the hand that I've been dealt. So
it's really, I gotta say, I'm just your team. Just looking at the averages, it's breathtaking. The blocks turnover columns right at the end of the tables when you look at your team, and I want to get to that. The blocks thing. I don't think there's been a model for punt blocks in UFBL before. Am I wrong, Beer?
I haven't seen it.
Lusky, am I wrong about that?
I'm checking.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I'll get back.
I interrupted you. So you targeted Vooch, you targeted Kyrie.
Yeah, and Kyrie was because he was a relatively high field goal percentage, free throw percentage, point guard. I knew I needed a top-notch point guard. I wasn't necessarily concerned with a ton of assists because I figured the way I was going, I could probably fill it out with a bunch of guys who got slightly better than their positional average. And I was expecting a little bit more from Brogdon and got lucky with Dinwiddie. So that worked out. But then in terms of guys I was targeting and actually drafted, Enes Kanter was circled, starred, highlighted, and underlined. Just because he fits that model. No blocks, fills up. He's outstanding from the line,
Yep.
and he's a field goal percentage anchor. So that he fit the model perfectly, and I think he has a history and a reputation in the league that's probably a little undeserved. I mean, he was on a championship team last year, and there's a reason for that because he's really good at the things that he's good at. He just doesn't get blocks, and that makes him not sexy, and unattractive for a lot of managers.
Yep.
And then Collison was the other guy I was targeting. Tobias, I just fell into. I didn't really have him targeted, but he came up and I was looking at him and I was like, his profile looks great. He looks exactly like what I wanted, and it allowed me to move Bradley, which then allowed me to get Hardaway, which I was pretty excited about.
Lusky, we've talked a little. I think we've alluded to this on the pod, and I think we've talked about it a little bit on Slack. This is such a sort of classic and this is sort of such a classic UAFBL build in a sense, where this was really a team, a contender, whether Beer wins or not, but a contender that was built at the auction, not built on some of the sort of peripheral, extracurricular types of activities that have been the foundation of Beer's competitors right now. does this are there elements of this that we want to reinforce as a league? Do we want to applaud Beer for this sort of classic build, just building through the auction, or do we sort of like that there are now sort of competing models? One of which is competing through building this auction team. The other is sort of what Emmer, I think, is probably the best example of, did. His team pre-auction was sort of built already, at least the sort of key building blocks of it, because of things that he had done, years ago and through other mechanisms besides the auction. How do you think about how SFP fits, in the sort of the UFBL of 2017?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's extremely healthy for the league that different types of strategies are emerging as competing ones, right? I think there's been this sense recently of late, and it seems kind of like to have come on very recently, within the last couple of years, of like extreme mucking, and not just coming in, kind of seeing where your team falls and then deciding to sell. Like, there's been the sense of like, I'm gonna muck, like, before anyone even suspects it. And what I like and appreciate about what Beer's done is, obviously he was never mucking, but he came in and said, I'm going to draft a team. I'm going to hope that my team competes. And, if it hadn't worked out, then Beer would have joined the rest of us in selling, I'm sure. But it did work out. And I think that that's important to demonstrate that can be done, because that's like the traditional model that has worked many, many times in the past in this league.
Yeah, and just to add, like last year, I think there was a sense that I was bucking, because the year before I was coming in, I had competed and I had pushed all my chips in, and so I didn't have a lot coming back, and I was in a buyout situation and whatnot. But in my mind, last year I had Harris, I had McCollum, I bought Harden, and I was trying to do kind of the same thing. I ended up, having a few too many bullets and getting in a bidding war over Rajon Rondo with Horn and winning, and and bought Chandler Parsons for another $40, and like a bunch of the dudes that I thought we're gonna pan out didn't, and lo and behold, I was at the bottom of the standings, and I had James Harden and sold him. So like I was still like, I was like trying to split the difference and like be somewhat competitive, and just did a really poor job.
Yeah, I mean, Beer, I was looking at your historical drafts before the podcast, and I think every single year you've drafted a team. Like, it's really interesting, because your standings suggest that you seesaw and go from good to bad, good to bad, good to bad, and you would think, because of how dramatic it is, that it's intentional. But every single year you draft a team. You rebuild by competing, whether you want to or not.
One year I drafted Anthony Davis and Derrick Rose, who was on an injury, and I don't know that I could sell that as drafting through or rebuilding through competing. Even though Anthony Davis ended up panning out, he didn't end up being on my team. So, and Derrick Rose was terrible post that season-long injury, so that didn't work out either.
I don't think I realized that you were intending to compete last year when you drafted Harden and paid $196 for him. I assume that once somebody's paying $196 for a player, that they're buying that player to flip him. That you can't build a team for $204 and change.
Well, I was hedging, so I was both. I had Harris, who I believed in. I know other people didn't at the time, but I thought was going to be good, and I ended up, I think, being proven right. He outplayed his value. And I had McCollum, and I spent a bunch of money on one guy so that if it didn't pan out, I could flip him. When I say competing, I mean more that I was trying to make some noise and see what was going to happen.
You weren't paying $177 for Dennis Smith.
No. I wasn't totally mucking the season. I was gonna.
Did you how intimidated were you coming into this auction by the Leonine Faces and Chupacabras?
I mean, I was.
How discouraged were you by the LSL enabled deals prior to the auction?
I wasn't so much discouraged by those individually. I was more discouraged by, I was like, holy crap, every single good player is off the board already. I was, I think I had a conversation with you where I was like, I'm like not looking forward to this draft because there's no, this is before I had any clear strategy. I had some other things in mind and that I just knew weren't going to work based off of the way the landscape looked. I don't know. I didn't get discouraged by those LSL deals until probably after the draft, and I started getting a little competitive, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, holy crap, these guys are totally stacked still, and it's all because of, or it's a huge part of it's because of these crazy deals that happen. But I still maintain that those it's fun that there's a league that allows those kind of deals to happen, and I think in both directions, and I know I've said this to Amish, even coming in, they've got a bunch of big guys, but if some of them get injured, one or two of them get injured, man, this thing's still open. And lo and behold, Gobert's down for a while. Jokic sits out a bunch of games.
Both of those managers have gotten killed. Jokic has been out, Wall's been out, Draymond's been out, Gobert's been out, Booker's been out. I mean, they've been last year. I kept waiting for injuries to befall Amish and Lusky's team, and it never happened. This year, the contenders are facing injuries to their worst players, and that happens. I think that's the status quo really in UFBL and in the NBA is that these guys get hurt and miss months at a time, and I think that's part of why it makes sense for managers in the future to do some version of what you did, which is just go out in there and draft a fucking team. Like if you've got $400 to spend and a couple keepers, Otto and a few others, like that's enough. Like it's worth taking your shots because you just don't know what's going to happen, and you're as likely to avoid injuries as anybody else. And if you are the person who mostly avoids injuries, and the odds are your competitors are going to face them, and you'll be in the mix. So I think this year's a good example of that. But Beer, like all of your guys, like every single one has hit. Your margin for error in some ways was pretty narrow, and you've managed to kind of thread the needle. Is there anything that you did at the auction that hasn't worked out?
I mean, the jury's still out, but Brogdon is probably.
I guess he's still a top 100 guy. I'm just looking at the Yahoo rankings. He's still top 100 guy who you're paying whatever you're paying, 20. What is he? 18. Yeah,
18. So I mean, he's been quality. I'm frustrated with Jason Kidd, who's decided to start Gary Payton II and then waive him like a week later and give him 16 minutes when you've got the Rookie of the Year sitting on your bench, giving him only 25. So
rookie of the Year with an asterisk.
Why? Because Embiid didn't play enough.
Embiid didn't play. No, it was just a weak year. I mean, he sort of won it by default. But whatever. I agree. Like he should be playing more.
The Rookie of the Year by default is still the Rookie of the
Year. The Michael Carter Williams Memorial Award. Go ahead, Lusk.
Well, just to interject, I've been really peering into this muck block strategy. So the only champion, the lowest blocking champion we've had in modern history was the 2013. At the time, they were called the Punches Terry or something. They were the Youngstown Pride. He ended up with a 6 in blocks, and I think actually that I don't think that Sorry for Partying is going to end up as a 1. Like when they add Anthony Davis and guys like that, they're gonna end up competing in blocks a little bit. And then it looks like Emmer attempted to muck blocks a couple of times in 2012 and maybe 2010, and ended up like top 3 or 4. But no one has ever gotten dead last in blocks and won the league.
So the timing of it, Beer, is really good. And it might even be a year late for sort of maximum value or sort of maximum savings on it. But we've talked about on this pod before how I think last year we saw this in the stats where like and I don't know if we actually like tested this, but it felt like blocks were way down. It felt like some of the top blocks guys, their numbers were not peaking as high as they used to. It felt like because the NBA is such is sort of going through this sea change tactically. There's not as much penetration. There's not as much guys trying to get to the rim. There's so many more threes being taken that blocks were just, and a lot of the traditional, 7-footers who don't have a shot and can't space the floor are just not spending as much time on the court. And it just seemed like blocks were down. And so the guys who still got blocks, the Whitesides and the Goberts and all these guys, go for a premium because there's just not as many of them. It seems like there's not as many of them who get, elite blocks. And so it does seem like a good time to be doing it. As I said, if not a year too late. Is that something that you were mindful of or you'd been thinking of? You said you realized it just before the auction when you sort of realized the hand you were dealt. But has that been a phenomenon that you've been conscious of and thinking about over the last year or two?
Well, I mean, I definitely noticed it last year. We were talking about block scarcity in the Slack, and it felt, whether or not the numbers panned out, I think someone proved out that they weren't necessarily down overall. It still felt like that. They may have been more concentrated in a few players. But to be honest, I didn't really. I think it's hard to win the league mucking a category, any category. Getting a one in any category is really, really hard, and I think that includes turnovers. To be honest, so I think other managers have a similar issue, but it wasn't necessarily something I wanted
for the record.
to do.
For the record, the Jabberwocks are currently in last place in turnovers, so
which is
that won't be an issue.
Which is amazing.
That won't be an issue this year.
Again, you're also 40 games up on two guys, so.
But Beer, you could easily end up with 6 points instead of one in blocks. You're like 50 blocks or 60 blocks out of you're only 40 blocks away from 5 more points in blocks, which is nothing.
Yeah, I mean it's not insurmountable. I mean, I was drafting a team that was set up this way, but the good thing about this is it doesn't. Blocks is a category I could potentially catch up in. It's definitely something I want to. It's an easy way to improve, and I think what I've realized in the last few weeks is I actually have some guys who are relatively good in non-block positions. Harris getting half a block and those kinds of guys. Dinwiddie actually gets like half a block, or he has been. Those add up. So,
yeah.
But no, I think to get back to your question, Horn, it wasn't necessarily something that I've been thinking about in a long time. It was just, like I said, all the good block guys were already taken, and so
right.
I just decided I'm going to ignore this category, and I'm going to make sure that everything else is. I'm going to make sure that my percentages are good. I'm going to make sure, I didn't think a ton about turnovers, but I definitely made it was part of the strategy. I wasn't like avoiding turnovers. This is the other thing. I think Gabe said it in the last pod. I don't know that I necessarily expect to end up with 12 or whatever points I have in turnovers right now, but I think having less turnovers now allows me to, take on some guys with
there's a cushion as you take on some of those guys.
Right.
So I want to just ask you a question, and it's not directly sorry for partying related, but we're now at December 20th. I think I haven't looked back at the data, but I think this is sort of right around the time when things in the last couple of years have been heating up. Do you get the sense, and I want to hear from you as well on this, do you get the sense that there's a little bit of a sort of Mexican standoff happening at the top, and you are uniquely positioned to answer this question because you have Durant and Davis. where the competing managers aren't quite sure whether they want to ring the bell and begin the arms race, that they're not quite sure what each other are thinking and how confident each other are, without revealing, conversations that you've had with some of those managers. What's your view about, what the perspective is from the buyers as a collective?
Well, I can't really speak for the buyers, but I can speak for the sellers in saying, from my standpoint, it doesn't feel like anyone really wants to win all that much this year. That's the truth of it, is that I haven't really received many serious offers to date, which is interesting to me, given that, as we talked about, a couple of these contenders are way back in games played. They have assets to deal. We haven't really had serious conversations that kind of get my juices flowing. So that's why at this point, I think like beer's 28% or whatever feels low. Because I don't think anybody's motivated to win right now.
Whoa. It is December 20th. It isn't even Christmas. It isn't even 2018 yet. We got a lot of season left.
Well, I hope you're right. As the manager of Durant and AD, I hope you're right, because it's shocking to me. Obviously, I drafted these guys with a purpose.
And as the manager of Marcus Smart and Dion Waiters, I also hope you're right.
But honestly, are people just like hanging back, being like, "Oh, I'm gonna get there with, I don't know, this, like with John Collins or whatever the fuck his name is." Like, come on.
So I think. Go ahead, Beer.
John Collins is a pretty big pickup for Gabe.
So I think I could go through. I don't want to do it right now, but I could go through the top 6 teams. First of all, the number 6 team, Scorpion Balls, is the only one who's made a move. So I'll go through the top. I can go through the top 5 teams
better than most.
Well, so I could go through the top 5 teams and I think articulate a reason why each of those managers, for his own reasons, from his own perspective, based on a number of factors, doesn't feel as confident as it might seem from the outside, or as that we might think he should feel. The most obvious example is Emmer, who I think had the strongest team coming in. It was crazy what he was able to assemble with Jokic, Porzingis, George, Paul, LeBron. I mean, that's fucking insane. And he's been devastated by injuries, and I think I don't want to speak for him, but my sense is that he's a little bit snake bitten. I think Gabe too is a little bit snake bitten by injuries. I think that Bookbinder is
poor Emmer.
Well, no, I don't.
Yes, I feel so bad.
I don't mean to. No. I don't mean. No. It's not about feeling bad for Emmer. I'm just saying that there are reasons why some of these guys might be, not as gung ho as you might think, Lusky.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I'm not saying it's an easy path. You should be fighting tooth and nail to win. I don't care how great of a deal you made in October by selling a stupid LSL pick that like nobody. I mean, come on. Like, I don't care. Like, it's all about right here, right now. Who wants to win this thing? And I don't think anybody does.
I do.
Obviously,
does that count?
No, obviously that's not true. Beer, can you speak a little bit without revealing tactics? Can you speak a little bit to your thinking about how and when to make the first move? You can refuse to answer if you'd like.
I mean, I'm thinking about it. I've talked to a few managers. I haven't talked to Lusky. Part of Lusky's thing is that he's announced that he's not dealing both of them. So
should we?
Why would tell me any deal in any world in which it makes sense to deal 2 top 10 players in one deal?
If you're getting 2 top keepers back.
Okay. I don't really see that out there. I mean, maybe Emmer. I mean, Emmer has 2 top keepers, but he's not making that deal because Emmer is expecting a lot more. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk deal right now? I mean, we've got Sorry for Partying, we've got Dirty Dog Nation. Why don't we talk? Let's open the discussion.
I'm never averse to talking deals.
Let's get into it. So, Beer, again, without you can kill this if you want to, but of Durant and Davis, which statistical profile better meets your needs, and which would you prefer if you had to have one?
Oh, I don't know that I can say which one I prefer. They're both awesome. So
let's
Davis
go
is a
ahead.
big. Davis is a big who is efficient, which clearly fits exactly what I want, and he's relatively low turnovers. Durant is Kevin Durant, so kind of fits everybody's team.
So, but like this decision, if you were to pursue one or the other, it would be informed in large part by your thinking on the blocks question, right?
I have an opinion on this, but I don't.
Although
want to
I think
it.
Durant averages more blocks than AD at this point.
Durant's been on a tear with blocks, right?
Right.
So Lusky, of the SFP assets, which intrigue you?
Well, I mean, Porter's the obvious guy, right? I mean, I like Porter.
So I mean, to trade Porter for one of those guys would be, I would think, an attractive proposition, given that each of those guys is sort of the inverse of Porter, right? He's this sort of glue guy for a fantasy team. Those guys are popcorn. I assume, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that you'd be willing to trade. You'd work around a framework where you send Porter in exchange for one of Durant or Davis.
Yes.
I mean,
I probably want some other. Lusky alluded to this, but he's got some other guys that are attractive who I'd probably want back, and I could throw in.
You'd want a little depth. You would want a little depth, right?
Yeah, I want, like, he's got a couple of other guys who are startable. Who I would want.
You want Will Barton. You obviously want Will Barton.
Everybody wants Will Barton.
Yeah.
All right.
I love some Denver Wings.
Yeah, of course you do. Right. You can put the whole fucking squad together. Except Lusky dropped Wilson Chandler, so you can't get the entire squad. Lusk, you presumably would be willing to deal like Durant and fucking Will Barton for Otto Porter, right?
No, I mean, all of these deals, like, look at this stuff. Look at it. I mean, compare the Porter deal last year, right? So the Porter deal last year was Porter and like $9 and a slot. And this is when Porter was an even better value with 3 years on it, a 3-year contract, right? And it was for the best player in the league in Harden. So,
a better value.
Yeah, I think.
But he was a little bit more of an unknown. Now we've seen a lot of Porter being this guy.
That's right. Last year,
over and over again.
That's
I was
right.
still
Last
taking
year,
a chance on him.
That's right. Last year, I forget who I made the bet with. It was like Emmer or Bookbinder, maybe somebody else. I can't remember anything. But last year, I made a bet with somebody about I think it was Bookbinder, whether Otto would finish the season as a top whatever he was, 25 player or something. And he did, and I won, and Beer was vindicated, and I was vindicated. But at the time that bet was made, which was when I still owned him, which meant it was like this time of year last year, there was an open question as whether Porter would sort of regress to a top 60 player, a top 75 player. So I think Beer's absolutely right that there was a lot of uncertainty baked into that.
And I think there's a lot of uncertainty now. Look at Porter's last 30 games. Look at it. I mean, he's like, I don't know if he's top 100.
Well, he's been banged up for like the last 4, so if you're going to include that.
I mean, I like the guy. I just said so. I'm just saying, like, look, let's cool it.
Okay. So I think that's fair. So the last 30 games, he's the 50th ranked player on Yahoo. So Beer, I presume, correct me if I'm wrong, that you'd be willing to throw in like a slot and a couple bucks with Porter to get Durant and Barton, right?
Wait, are we really negotiating a deal?
Dude, we're just talking. We can cut this all out if you want.
Well, yeah.
No, I'd probably be willing to throw in a slot and some cash and whatnot. As is customary, as is tradition.
I mean, I will say
we all know what this deal. We all know what this deal looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, I think there's legs here, and we're not going to consummate something here tonight on the air, unfortunately. But like, part of the issue for me is like,
hold on, wait, why are we going to consummate something? Like, all we do is talk about how great it would be to have some big blockbuster deal happen on the pod. Like, this is it. This is the framework. You said, Lusky, before we started, you're like, oh, I can't wait to get on the pod and tell the whole fucking league that Sorry for Parting is the only team that really wants to win this thing. Beard is going to be the fucking champ.
Okay, well, here's the deal. I need somebody. I need Emmer to phone in. I need beer. I need somebody to call in, and maybe an offer I can't refuse. I have yet to see it. I want to see someone want to win this fucking league.
Obviously, Beer can't make you an offer that you can't refuse on the pod. I'm not going to ask him to do that.
I mean, you're asking for a knee-jerk reaction, and you know what? Just because we're bereaved, it doesn't make us sad.
All right. So maybe Otto for Durant's not happening. So maybe we should be talking about Enes Kanter for Anthony Davis.
Oh, Enes Kanter for Anthony Davis. Let's do it.
No.
Beer, do you feel like icky with like relying on Dinwiddie and Collison and like
Kanter's amazing. Team, wait, let's just get it out. Kanter's on every championship team.
If the Jabberwocks were in first place right now and we were doing it with Dinwiddie and Kanter and Collison and Tobias Harris and Malcolm Brogdon and whoever the fuck you play, I would just be like, feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Do you feel like that at all?
I think I've kind of alluded to this. These guys are coming into, other than Darren Collison, who is
Collison is what he is. Collison, that was a smart buy. I mean, that's a smart buy. Good situation for him. And yeah.
But Dinwiddie is 24 years old.
Isn't he only getting this? But he's only getting these stats because Russell's out, right?
I mean, that's a huge part of it. But all the stuff, all the NBA press I've been reading is
by these stats, we are referring to like 39% from the field.
Yes, there are things that I have to live with, but I can make up for, and I can live with for 7 assists a game or something like that. Yeah. So he's not perfect, but he's worked out. And what is it? It's like a half a block and like a steal and 1.3 steals, something like that. So he's a younger guy. It's not like he did a play, and I think I don't know that this is necessarily a total fluke. Same with Tobias Harris. I mean, I think he's all of a sudden he went 4 for 16 tonight, which isn't great, but he's finally given an opportunity by SVG to actually get a bunch of burn, and he's getting opportunity. I think he's like, I don't feel dirty about him. Darren Collison, I mean, he is what he is. Enes Kanter he's only 25 years old. So if you look at my average age for my team, it's actually the second youngest in UAFBL. Fun fact. So
who is the youngest?
Oh, come on.
It's either Height or Rumspringa.
It's Rumspringa by a mile. He's like, his average age is like 21.
That does surprise me, actually. But
I'm second or third.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So no, you're right. You're hitting these guys. You're hitting these guys. Not right. You basically went after the guys who, at some point over the first 2 or 3 years of their career, like showed that they were legitimate top 75 players, or it could be top 75 players in UFBL. And that for various reasons, like, hit the, not sophomore, but like, third or fourth year bumps in the road, and some of the shine came off the apple, and you sort of swooped in and got your Tobiases and your Kanters.
Right. That's it. Right. So my oldest guys are Darren Collison, who's 30, and Kevin Love, who's 29. Those are my two oldest guys. So everyone else is like they're, before their late 20s. Boost is 28.
Yeah. Lusk, you were saying that when you were looking back at the SFP history, you were struck that he came in each year, drafted a team and tried to compete. That characteristic aside, what do you think the league perception is of Beer as a manager?
I think it's very good. I mean, he's been competitive every other year, as you can tell. But I also think like the league perception is potentially marred or false because there was like this 4-year cloud of muck free throw, right? And what actually strikes me is I remember during the muck free throw years, and correct me if I'm wrong, Beer, but I remember you like one year at the ranch, you were like advising somebody else who was thinking about mucking free throw.
Me.
Yeah.
It didn't work out.
You were like drunk on bullet and like wandering around muttering things about like.
Lusky, hold on. Before you go on, you understand this is what you're describing is why I traded you Gordon Hayward for Jay Crowder last year.
Thank you, Beer. Thank you, then.
You're welcome.
Horn was so confident.
The only reason I did it,
that
was because Beer was sitting next to me. Beer was sitting next to me, and he was in my fucking ears like, "You can't have Gordon Hayward on this team. You can't have Gordon Hayward on this team. Total, you need to get rid of Gordon Hayward."
So, amazing. I love it. But I remember you like drunk and like wandering around like muttering things about turnovers and mucking free throw, and I was like, what is he talking about? And like the thing is, like, Emmer has this reputation in our league of like being this like staunch, like he's so committed to percentages, right? That's his new thing, is like, I'm gonna get percentage bigs, right? At all costs. But your thing is turnovers, and I really respect it. Like everybody just assumes that turnovers are trash, including me, and you don't live by that motto, so I respect it.
It is true. Beer, you right. That there's a history there, but before you get to that, I just want to say, if you win this year, you don't have to be first in turnovers. If you win this year without sort of punting turnovers, it will, I think, turn a lot of certain managers thinking about UFBL on its head. I think there's a subset of managers in the league who assume that you have to be at the bottom of the turnover category by the end of the year, and I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that upset by the Sorry for Partying season. And Lusk, I don't know if you want to go dig into it. I don't feel like doing it right now, but I think if you look at the last several years, I mean, every single manager who's been first, second, third has been at the bottom of the league in turnovers. But anyway, good. Beer, go ahead. Yeah, you were going to rebut this idea that you've always been a turnover Puritan.
Last year, I had like so many turnovers. I had James Harden. It was
but we already discussed last year was an anomaly for you.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you say an anomaly?
Yeah, exactly that.
Beer, what do you think your reputation is in the league?
Well, I think the muck free throw thing has
that really tainted you. I was really down on Sorry for Partying for several years. Not because you dabbled in it, but because you like kept going back. Like that, just doing it year after year, like just seemed so depressing to me. Doing the same thing every year seemed really depressing to me.
Yeah. It was.
I feel like you've been like reborn since then.
I mean, I had Andre Drummond. I was.
I know. I know why you did it. It just was sort of a bummer. Like, I get it. It's not like it wasn't a reasonable thing for you to be doing. It's just like my whole thing in UFBL is just like try something different each year. I don't need to go through it all, but like each season, each auction, I try to like, I'll do some strategy that I've seen somebody else do, or I'll try something new that I've thought of, or I just want to try to see what the league looks like from all these different perspectives. And doing punt free throw for 3 or 4 years straight, or whatever it was that you did with Drummond, just like, I don't know, it's sort of dull.
Yeah, it was 3 years. 3 years, but then the year before I won the year before I got Drummond is the year I won with muck free throw. So it ended up being 4 years in a row. I mean, muck free throw simplifies a lot of things. So it isn't all bad. Plus, you get really fun players doing muck free throw. You get your Blake Griffins and Chris Paul and all these guys who, they're maybe good at free throw, but a lot of their value isn't derived from free throw. That's why I was down on Gordon Hayward. A huge amount of his value is derived from his free throw percentage, and if you don't care about that, if it's not going to help you, you could probably do better. I may have been wrong. I'm not saying that if I hadn't traded Gordon Hayward for Jay Crowder, I would have won the league.
but I there's like a part of me that thinks that if I hadn't traded Gordon Hayward for Jake Crowder, I would have won the league. Go ahead, Lusky.
So 6 seems to be the magic number. We've had 3 champions of UAFBL that have scored a 6 with like a soft muck in turnovers. So they're not completely mucking, but they
Have any of those been in the Red Wedding era?
Well, one of them was the Chupacabras the year that he went up against you. Was that a Red Wedding era deal?
No, that was the year before the first Red Wedding.
So no, but so yeah, that was the most recent one, and then actually, Beer is one of those in 2012, and then the year prior to that, looks like Emmer did it as well.
Yeah. Turnover sucks.
It'll be interesting. I mean, the other thing. I mean, it's the guys who Beer needs. I haven't looked at it closely, and Beer, tell me if I'm wrong. The guys that you don't necessarily need the worst turnover offenders right now. Like if you look at the top 10, 15.
He doesn't need anybody. He's already won.
It's true.
I'm the only one competing.
Lock it up. Lock it up. Engrave the trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beer, you seem really excited about the Foreplay app. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Wait, well, I want to hear what you have to say about the Foreplay app first.
You want to hear what I have to say?
Yeah.
I was skeptical of it. So I came late. I did not start at the beginning of the season. I did not know about it until the ranch when you guys were all like following it during the on the Saturday watching college football. It's fine. I'm not sure. It doesn't feel essential to my like college football Saturdays. But I like that at the end of this, I'm going to be able to take everyone's money because it seems really easy. I think of the weeks that I've participated, and I think those were like 8 or 9 weeks. I think there's only been 1 week in which I haven't hit the 4 out of 4. So
yeah, you're dominant.
I don't know. It just seems like I do it. You always remind me to do it. I do it. I don't check it during the Saturday, and then on Sunday when I'm bored, I'll open the app up and just see how I did, and I have like a moment of gratification. I don't know. It's fine. I'll do it. I mean, it's fine. I wish there was more like banter. I could use like a channel on Slack to like get into it with you all about it on Saturdays, I guess.
Here we go.
I would absolutely love to have a channel on Slack.
It would just be like Amish being like, "Oh no, I forgot to submit pigs."
No, it would be Amish. It would be Amish asking me if he can quit because he's been asking me if he can quit every single week since like week 5, and every week I'm like, "You can do whatever you want, dude. You know that you can quit."
It's gonna be me. It's gonna be like, "Oh, why did I choose? Why did I pick Florida Atlantic?"
Last week was upsetting. It was like, I mean, last week's teams were ridiculous. Wait,
Yeah.
I have a UAFBL thing. We got to talk about something. Guys, before we get off of this, because I'm already crowning SFP, check this out. So according to the live stat tracker, live standings beta, which like, come on, you're not in beta anymore. It's been out for a year. And he's going to come back tomorrow when these are all different. He's going to be like, oh, it's like Jedediah's fault or whatever that guy's name is. But here's the deal. Right now, at this moment, Sorry for Partying is 11.5 points up. And there's a 3-way tie for second. And get this. The 3-way tie includes for second place Scotty B for 3 and the Cass City Red Ox.
I love it. I love it.
I do too. We haven't talked about them, and this is the thing: is I've heard whispers that Bookbinder's about to muck. Like, what is happening?
Well, wait a minute. First of all, Leslie, aren't you at the vanguard of mucking from first or second place?
Well, I think the one time that I did it, I got hosed, right? Like Horford and CP3 both were.
Dude, he has Horford. He has Horford. He can do a repeat of that year. Beer. That's actually. We should talk about those two. We haven't talked about it on the pod. We've drifted away on the pod about just sort of like covering the league, and this is supposed to be a Sorry for Partying pod. And I think we've done a good job with that. But let's talk about those teams. Beer. What do you like? We talked a lot about Leonine Faces and a little bit about Chupacabras. Like, what do you make of those other competitors? Let's just start with a simple question of Cass City and Scotty B for 3. Which of those two teams concerns you more?
Is someone like drumming in the background? I hear some drumming.
That's not me. Is that coming from you, Beer?
Yeah, Amanda's making some chili right now.
Oh, I want some.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Dude, Amanda makes chili at 10:40 at night.
it's for lunch tomorrow, and
That's great. I wish I started making me chili at 10:40 at night.
yeah. We've also I may have one of my little cousins got stranded at O'Hare, so she's going to spend the night, and she's in med school and probably hasn't eaten. So all of those things.
You have a house guest right now?
She isn't here yet, but she is going to land at O'Hare soon, I believe, from New York, on her way to San Francisco, where she's from. And she's going to get stranded, so she's going to probably be here, I think.
Does she follow the NBA?
I have no idea. This is a house guest who I haven't seen in 8 years about.
Dude, as soon as she walks in, you should just put her on the podcast.
Wait,
Give
sorry.
her some chili. Give her some chili. Pour her some bourbon and put her on the fucking podcast.
Oh, Cass City's back in second. I'm sorry.
All right. Anyway, so Cass City versus Scotty B.
Well, I mean, I'm way more scared of Cass City because for obvious reasons, like him being a very scary and competent manager.
Oh shit! Throwing shade at Scotty B.
Love you, Scott. No, but he's got like a similar profile to, he's got like he hit on a bunch of things. Like Drummond's awesome. Oladipo is like a top 10 player. Like an
oh my
all-star.
God! Look at the line. Look at the spot start he got from Tyler Johnson tonight.
Look at the spot start he got from Tyler Johnson last night or 2 nights ago. The guy's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's not spot starting anymore. Tyler Johnson might be
this is just life with Tyler Johnson.
Yeah, and he's got like Reggie Jackson. Like he's hit on a bunch of the Gortat has been up and down, but
oh wait,
God.
Guys, Larry Nance. Look at Larry Nance.
Dude, Larry Nance is good.
Larry Nance might be the best available keeper in the league. and I'm not even giving anything away here because he doesn't listen to the podcast.
He doesn't even know there is a podcast.
Yeah.
Larry Nance is only 42% owned in Yahoo leagues. But he is actually
public league bullshit.
So I don't think that you can. The Glassby's problem is that we all look at it's okay. Maybe I'll just speak in the first person here. First person singular. I look at this team, and my first reaction is, God, this is like a classic Glassby team. He's got his Lowry. He's got his Oladipo. He's got his Gortat. He's got his Greg Monroe. It's just like, Lillard again. He kept this is just like classic Glassby. And he always does this to us, and he's always competitive and blah blah blah. Then you sort of dig down and you say, well, why isn't he actually successful? Why hasn't Glassby ever won this league? And I think the first reason why we all give when we're answering that question is, well, he doesn't engage in the arms race the way that we all do. He's not as engaged in the league. He's not feeling out every option. He's not as sort of plugged in. But then I think I'm looking at his team tonight, which I don't do every night. I don't think you can win the league when you're giving JaMychal Green starts like tonight. That kind of shit. We see the Tyler Johnson starts. And it's look at that. He's getting mileage out of Tyler Johnson, but he's also just burning starts on JaMychal Green. The Larry Nance line is fine, Lusky, but it's actually not. 13, 9, and 4 and a steal is not
is good.
Bad free throw.
Good.
No, it's not.
Whoa,
it's nothing.
Whoa. 5 of 6 from field goal, Horn. We're ignoring some important shit here.
I don't know, man. I don't know. He's Larry Nance is fine. I don't mean to be down on Larry Nance. I just I don't think you can. I don't think you can win. And I can look at the. I'm going to pull up the games played. I assume he's among the leaders in games played, right?
He is right next to me. He's 3-1.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. He's using his starts on the wrong guys, I think, and I
So
like his.
Jermichael
Go ahead.
Green, in the last, like, call it 6 games, his rebounds, just his rebounds, 8 4 15 12 8 1. So this game that you're looking at tonight, which is only at half, is by far the lowest. But he's doing something. I agree with you. Jermichael Green's probably not the guy he wants to be trotting out there in UAFBL. But there was a period during the year, particularly a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, when he was pretty awesome. And I think Glassby just kind of sticks with his guys a little bit longer. So.
Right. Yep.
You should probably be starting Torrey Craig.
Lusky, what's your take on Scotty B for three's current team and where he might be able to go from here?
I'm impressed that he's gotten up to second with the guys he had. I mean, he wasn't in a great position to start the year. And Westbrook has frankly been terrible. I mean, he's shooting sub 40%, and his free throw percentage is really the problem. He's like 70%, shooting 7 times a game, which is not helping matters. He's basically a muck free throw team because of Gordon or of Westbrook. And Ibaka has also been terrible.
Brooks has got some amazing lines on his bench tonight.
His team is really good. McCollum, Ibaka, Horford. I mean, these guys are good. But
right now, here's the challenge, right? So I like McCollum. I like Ibaka. All these guys are great. Are they good enough to be on the UFBL champion in 2018 in March and April? I'm not sure. McCollum probably is.
They
all probably are.
The problem he's going to have is the arms race, right? Well, but this year there is no arms race, so we're good. I mean, the thing is, the problem that Scotty B has is when we get into trading season, whenever that may be, if it may be, there's just not a lot here to love. I mean, RHJ maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. On that, Josh, what do you? So you traded Frankie Smokes, and Emmer has the number 1 overall LSL pick for next year. Gabe still has Eitan, right? Are you relieved? I'm projecting here. My perception is that the value of these LSL guys has depreciated significantly since the summer or early fall. When Emmer and Gabe executed their deals, are you relieved that that's happened? And how do you think about LSL players' rights, draft picks, and how integral that is to a contender and his sort of war chest for the arms race?
Was that a question for me?
I don't know, man. I'm just talking. Yeah, it was a question for you.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat it?
Do you first of all, do you agree that the value of these LSL guys is depreciated? And if you do, is that a relief because you may not be as well situated as your competitors with respect to LSL assets?
Yes. I mean, it's a relief because I think we've seen that. I mean, I still have the 4th pick, which I still think is worth something. I believe that's where Dennis Smith Jr. was picked in LSL last year. Just throwing that out there. I mean, obviously I don't have the 1st pick like Emmer does, so that's not great. But rookies suck, man. They suck most of the time.
Right, exactly.
And so, basing your entire strategy around rookies is just a bad plan. And I think T-Mac was it can work out. It's actually working out for Amish. But it's not working out on the LSL guys outside of Dennis Smith Jr. necessarily.
Horn, sorry to interject, but Horn, I want to ask. I know you always say I ask the questions here, but let me ask you a question, right? Because you're in the same boat as I am, a seller. Not a lot going on this question.
I don't have Kevin Durant.
No, but you're a seller. You're with me. You've got Dion Waiters, who's as good as Kevin
That's right.
Durant.
That's right. Good point. All right,
So-
I will entertain your question.
So we've got guys that are already on LSL benches in like I don't know Zion Williamson or like Aton or Bagley,
yeah, all these guys.
right? How do you perceive those guys relative to the guys that are already under contract and in the NBA? Guys like Porter or Jokic or Zinger.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a good question. I always thought it was crazy that Amish and Height were willing to pay what they paid for Lonzo and Dennis Smith. I spent a lot of time when I was developing what is now known as the LSL, coming up with the rookie scale. I spent a lot of time looking at past rookie performances, and I reached the same conclusion that Josh just articulated, which is that rookies generally suck, and the guys who would sufficiently exceed their rookie scale contracts are basically unicorns, right? There's like maybe one a year or less than one a year over the last 5 or so years that I looked at, and even among that group, there were very few that were like far exceeded it, right? Like Karl Anthony Towns is a great example where like it was great that we got Towns and he paid 81, I think, right, for his rookie year, and 91, 101, 111 is great. But it's not like so great. I mean, it's really good. It's not like changing the like fundamentals of his team. And that's true for most of these guys. So I've always been of the view that that these guys and the rights to these guys were overrated. So when you're asking about like Bagley and Williamson and some of these other guys, like I like them. I mean, Bagley's fucking amazing, but I still put him in the class of players who, he may be the one guy next year who far exceeds his rookie scale, but I tried really hard in coming up with that rookie scale to calibrate it such that like most of these guys would be sort of close calls, or some would sort of land on the red, some would sort of land on the black, and you wouldn't have. I did not expect anyone to pay $177 for their rights. So I mean that's a long way of saying I much prefer a year of Jokic to Zion Williamson, if that's what you're asking.
That is what I'm asking.
I mean, Beer, do you agree with all of that? Like, has your view of any of that changed over the last several months, watching these guys begin their NBA careers relative to their rookie scale contracts and the UFBL valuation of them?
No, I mean I've been on board with this the entire time. Rookies are not outside of the unicorns. They generally just suck. I mean, Jason Tatum is a total freak of nature. He's shooting over 50% from 3 right now. He should not be doing that. He should not be doing that.
I mean, the fact that we all missed on Tatum and Markkanen. The fact that we all missed on Tatum and Markkanen.
He wasn't even fucking drafted.
And Mitchell. We missed on Mitchell. Yeah, nobody knew. Well, no, but in the UFBDL, none of us drafted those guys.
And the thing is, the other guys I considered Donovan Mitchell, I considered Jason Tatum, but I went with Kilatina because you have limited information to go with. Tatum did not shoot this well in college, so right. I don't know what happened. Donovan Mitchell he was a Louisville guy, high athletic component. I wasn't sure on him, but they were both like on the list. But you don't know,
right. And it's very hard to ignore all of the conventional wisdom and all of the I mean, look, Mitchell was like the 13th. He was like a late lottery guy, right? He was like 13th or something. Yeah. Markkanen started high but then fell back. Tatum's comps were all to like good players, but not necessarily like the best fantasy friendly players.
They were like the Jabari Parker and stuff. Like
Right.
Jabari's, he's a good basketball player. He's a great real life basketball player. But I don't know. Is that what I want on my fantasy team?
Yeah. No, I think all of that's right. It's hard. You're right. We have limited knowledge, and then that's all part of it. And it is true that like the Dennis Smith thing does have to do with like where he goes. And I'm beginning to look at next year, this upcoming. In 2 months we have another LSL draft, which I'm really excited about. And I started looking at I began looking at like who's available and who I might like to target. And I started to think like, well, I don't necessarily want the guys who are at the top of this list. I might want the guys who are going to fall into like the late lottery, who are going to be $5 guys on the rookie scale, and not $24 guys because they're going to be the second overall pick. It's a very strange bet to place, which I like, which I think is part of the attraction of this and part of the fun. But Lutz, you're obviously looking at some of these guys and looking at dealing with managers who have some of these guys. How are you thinking about it?
I think there's a valid argument that that some of these LSL prospects are as good of values as some of the keepers that are out there. I mean, look, there's a known kind of quantity of players that are viewed as keepers going into next year, and I'm expanding what I really like as a seller. Is that I can expand my scope of who I'm looking at as targets. And, when I start to think about it, I'm thinking, okay, some of these guys, like I really believe that they could be incredible NBA talents. And it doesn't restrict me to like only dealing with these quote unquote contenders that are, expecting a lot of expecting that home run in return for their keepers.
Oh, that's interesting. You like that as a seller. Say more about like the range. So you like LSL from the seller's perspective just because it gives you another like class of asset to consider.
That's right, and I will say like I'm a little gun shy because I think that we've seen already that in general these LSL contracts are not that valuable, and I think they're just not that valuable relative to. They're not that relative to what was paid in the offseason for Lonzo and Dennis Smith Jr. Like that's crazy talk, right? But that being said, when you compare them instead to people like Towns or Lillard, then it gets more interesting, right? And you say, okay, like wow, if Ayton is Towns, for example, then like
right. Maybe... But here's my question: why are you confident that he is like? Lonzo, we all thought Lonzo was that. When you compare Lonzo's rookie year to Lillard's rookie year, he's nowhere near Lillard. So, like, why do you think that Ayton is going to be the next, like, whatever, Like the odds of him being the next guy are low relative to all the other incoming rookies.
Yeah, I mean, like it's certainly a risk. There's no doubt that it's a risk. I mean, these LSL guys, it's the nature of the beast. But as a seller, you have to weigh the like upsides and downsides of all these guys. And it's like the downside of someone like Porter or Jokic or Zinger or whatever is like, okay, what you're going to get, and that the end is in sight, right? You know exactly when that contract ends,
right?
But with these other guys, it's like the LSL provides a certain amount of flexibility. You don't know when they're going to get drafted. You're placing a lot of hope into who's going to draft them and what their price ultimately will be based on when they get drafted. And it's like there's like a certain amount of appeal to that. That's like, okay, well maybe trading for an Ayton as opposed to a Jokic, for example, is the smart thing to do, especially if the manager is being more reasonable.
Beer. Do you have any? Do you currently have any cryptocurrency holdings? And can you speak to the relationship between LSL speculation, LSL value speculation, and the current Bitcoin market?
I don't have any cryptocurrency holdings, much to my chagrin, because it's gone up 16,000% or something crazy.
It's been a healthy return for those who got in early.
Yeah. Did anyone in UAFPL get in? I want to know.
I would. Who's the most
Okay,
likely
pick your
person?
manager that would be smart enough to get on Bitcoin.
Is it smart enough? I don't know. Amish?
No.
Peskin. I bet you Peskin secretly has like.
I'm going Uyghur
Bitcoin.
Jones. It's Uyghur Jones.
I'm gonna pick
Amish is in
Peskin.
tech. Amish is in tech too.
No, but a different thing. Like this is a Uyghur Jones thing. It's only like the real geeky of the geeks.
No, dude, it's Peskin. It's Peskin, dude. Peskin, like 4 years ago,
Peskin
5 years
probably.
ago, was on some fucking like Reddit site where it's like he got like persuaded that like this was the thing to do when it was trading at like 200, and he bought like 3 Bitcoin, and now he's got $60,000 in value.
LSL players are more valuable than Bitcoin. Hot takes.
LSL players more valuable than Bitcoin. I think that's right.
I'm about to click accept.
LSL is those guys actually might return value. Bitcoin is just a conduit for transferring value. It's like gold. So the only reason it's going up is because a bunch of people are buying it.
That's exactly right.
Buying it right now.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's right. There's a non-zero chance that Zion Williamson actually like contributes to a UFDL championship at some point in the future. Whereas there's a 0 chance that you're going to use Bitcoin to pay for your fucking groceries.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could maybe somewhere down the line, but it's still just another currency. It's like buying gold or euros or whatever. So,
Beer, is there anything that we have not covered tonight that you would like to cover? Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to cover about Sorry for Partying that was not on my agenda, but that was on my. I have a separate list. This is like my private agenda, and I wanted to raise this, which is your last year or 2 years ago. I started going back through your history and looking at your trades, and I stumbled across the one that I'd forgotten about, which was your Blake Griffin trade from 2 or 3 years ago. Can you just talk a little bit about that one?
Oh my God.
Like that was
go ahead.
He was the
player I needed. And he was injured, and I got into a bidding war with Height, and Height went like, I don't know, whatever I gave, like, I think I gave $19 in 2 slots. Height offered 17 in 2 slots, and I came over the top by $2 or something like that. So
how many games did you get out of him?
I think 0.
Oh, Jesus.
Maybe like 5. I don't know. It was bad, but I didn't know they were saying he was going to be back at any time when the trade went down. And if he had come back, that year is different.
Sure.
A lot.
Sure.
The reason I was making it, he was the guy that I needed. He was, at least that's what I thought. And I came in, my initial offer was so much lower than what I ended up paying. But all of a sudden I was in this bidding war with Height. And Gabe took advantage. So.
Well, I mean, he didn't take it. I mean, he benefited from.
Right, that's what I mean. I didn't mean like in a nefarious way. I just meant he just.
He stood to profit from a confluence of fortunate events.
Exactly. So 2 guys strongly desiring a injured person on his team.
Well, he wasn't. Yes. So, any other past SFP eras or themes or transactions that we want to touch on before we start to wrap?
I mean, that isn't even the worst trade that I've had. Not even close. It barely makes the top 3.
Woo. Let's hear the top 3.
Worst trades?
Top 3 worst trades in Sorry for Partying history. Number 3.
Number 3 is probably the one that we just talked about.
Okay. Number 2.
Number 2 is Anthony Davis for George Hill.
Oh, sure. Of course. Of course.
Yeah,
dude. Dude. That's right. I thought
that's number 2. Number 1. I'm waiting over here.
But the thing is, that at the time,
I know we've talked about this. We've talked about this 14,000 times.
It looked so good. I couldn't believe that Phil was taking it.
Wait, George Hill was involved in that, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
it was Anthony Davis for George Hill. That was the entire deal.
Oh my god.
Um,
Dude, I was offering you like $5 in a slot. Is that better than George Hill?
you were not offering me $5 in a slot. That is not true.
Or was something like $8? I was like, it was like $8 cash.
I need the rejection email to prove it, or find it.
I'm gonna go into my Yahoo archives and find that shit.
But the number one worst deal was 2009, 2008 maybe. I traded Emmer CP3 for Elton Brand.
Oh no. Oh no.
CP3 on the front end of a 3-year contract.
That doesn't
Elton
sound
Brand.
right. Doesn't sound right. Yikes.
No, but you got to put yourself back in 2008. It was a crazy time.
Yeah.
Pre-financial crisis, you know.
It was like right at
Your Lehman Brothers stock was fucking flying. It was great. Elton Brand was top 25.
Elton Brand's Achilles was fine.
Probably before, like now, yeah. There's a little bit of NBA, knowledge gained in the intervening years. So, that was like my second year in fantasy. So,
my top bullet on this agenda was what recent NBA team is the best comp for the 2017-2018 Sorry for Partying. I don't know if either of you guys had a chance to think about it.
It was hard. It was hard, but I did come up with one.
Let's hear you. I had one in my head, which is why I asked the question. But so I'll share mine if you guys don't come up with it. Go ahead, Luff.
I mean, it's not great. But I kind of thought maybe the Utah Jazz. Like Beers. Like I said earlier, he always drafts a team to compete. He generally drafts these guys that are like, I have this tier of players that are like guys that I don't really want, but like if I miss on everybody else, I'll go get them. And like Beer targets those guys. Beer targets like the Vucevic Collison range, which is like my like last resort, right? And so I kind of think that's the Jazz.
Did you just say that I draft shitty players?
No, you're usually right, and I'm usually not. So but I was kind of reviewing the teams you draft, and I was like, these are kind of Jazz rosters.
I like that comp. Beard, did you give it any thought?
Well, I mean, I know the comp that you're going to give. So I can...
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, interesting. Well, what do you think it is?
You think I'm the Spurs? I'm boring and team-oriented.
No. That's not the comp that I had in mind. That's not the comp that I had in mind.
Oh, no?
No, I mean, you are boring and team-oriented, but that's not the comp that I had in mind. But the comp that I had in mind is a progeny of the Spurs. The team that I had in mind was the 2014-2015 Atlanta Hawks.
Mm.
You were that Hawks team that didn't come out of nowhere, but like that was that 60-win Hawks team where it was like, yeah, and they had good players, right? That was that they had Horford and they had Millsap and they had T. That was that Hawks team. Cephalosha, whoever the fuck else they had, and just
Blazemore.
Yeah, dude, Damare. That was Damare Carroll's breakout year, and that was the year when they were probably expected to be a middling Eastern Conference team, like the 6 through 4 seed or something, and they turned out to be a 60-win team, and that's sort of how I think about this year's Sorry for Partying, where in the last pod that we did, we talked about the weird 7. And I would have expected Sorry for Partying to be in the weird 7 this year. And because everything just clicked in the way that Hawks team clicked, you ended up being the cream of the crop.
No, but Horde, here's the thing is that my other pick, and I think this is probably the right way for us to close this, is my other pick is the other pick for Sorry for Partying this year is the Golden State Warriors, because I'm ready to crown them. Let's crown them.
Hey! Game over. That comp would work a lot better if you were willing to send Kevin Durant for Otto Porter $7 in a slot right now.
We're listening.
All right, dude. Should we wrap it up?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, probably.
All right. Good potting. Beer, thanks for joining us. We'll do this again as soon as we can. And have a good night, fellas. Enjoy the chili and your house guest.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks, guys.
Later.
Take